AWS certifications may help you get interviews, but certifications alone will not get you a cloud architect job. And that is why so many smart people get stuck. They earn the AWS Solutions Architect certification, they memorize AWS service names, and then they apply for cloud architect jobs and nothing happens. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you why this happens and how you can go from AWS certified to hired. Here's the mistake. Most people think a cloud architect job comes from knowing more AWS services. So what they do is they keep studying AWS services. They do more labs and they get more certifications. And I understand why. I get it. Certifications feel like progress. They give you structure, they give you confidence, and they give you something to put on your resume. So I'm not saying AWS certifications are worthless. They have value, but they will not get you hired unless you have the 4 pillars of architect skills. And here's why. There's a major skills mismatch between the actual cloud architect job and the cloud solutions architect job and what's actually taught in an AWS Solutions Architect certification. See, architecture is not about learning where to click on the AWS console, memorizing an AWS service name, or even knowing about the maximum number of subnets in a VPC. Those details matter, but they're not the job. See, as cloud architects, we operate at a different level. We cloud architects are paid to design a cloud strategy, guide architectural decisions across the organization, evaluate the various options we have and the trade-offs that are associated with each option. We're there to reduce risks or control costs. We're even there to communicate the plan or the architectural plan to leadership. And that's a very different skill set than what's provided in an AWS certification. Because while the AWS certification will teach you how to deploy a VPC, a virtual network on the cloud, the cloud architect must be able to explain what is the cloud network architecture, why was that architecture chosen, what is the impact of that architecture on security, scalability, or compliance. And that's architecture, which is not configuration. And that's the reason why so many certification collectors really lose when they go on a cloud architect interview or a solutions architect interview, because they can explain the AWS service, but they cannot explain the business rationale for using that AWS service. To become a cloud architect, you need 4 skill pillars. The pillars are technical skills, business skills, executive skills, and communication skills. Now, the technical skills will help you with the technical part of the job, which is about 25% of what we do as cloud architects. The other skill pillars will help you determine what to design, how that design will support the company's business goals, and even how to get your design funded. So I'll start with the pillar of technical skills. It's everyone's favorite, even though most of our job is actually non-technical. But let's talk about the technical skills first. And they are critical because you have to have technical credibility, which means you must understand cloud computing and cloud architecture fundamentals. That means you need to have deep knowledge in compute, storage, networking, security, identity, data and application architecture, and maybe a little more, but that's the main areas. You must understand how cloud systems work. Equally important is you must understand how cloud systems fail and how to work around that. Because without this knowledge, you won't have the technical knowledge to be able to do the job. But now let's get to the other skill pillars, and they are the key to actually getting you hired. And they're also the key to being effective actually as an architect. Now, in my experience, when you take someone with strong technical skills and then you add the business skills, the executive skills, and the communication skills, it's not too long until they have a great architect job with a great pay. So let's talk about the business skills. The business skills are going to be some of your most critical skills for the cloud architect, because we cloud architects are hired to create competitive business advantage, leveraging cloud platforms. And that means we need business skills to be able to translate a customer's business goals into an architecture. A business goal might be something like, how do we reduce costs? Or a business goal might be improve business agility, which enables that business to be faster at bringing new things to market, or it could be improve business resilience, for example. Another architectural goal could be to reduce risk or improve customer experience or maintain regulatory requirements. And that's the key. When we design an architecture, we're designing it based upon business issues. So An effective architect must be able to understand these business issues and design a strategy that supports the business goals. And that's why business skills are so critical for the role. The next pillar of skills is executive skills. And executive skills are really the secret sauce for getting our job done as an architect. Because at the end of the day, the executive team will determine whether they fund our architecture or not. And as cloud architects, we can't be effective if we can't convince the executive team to fund our architectures. And that's why architects must have executive skills. Now, in order to be able to communicate with executives and guide them and advise them, you have to know how to think like an executive, and you have to know what executives care about. Now, I can tell you what executives don't want to hear about. They don't want to hear about a service catalog like what's covered in a certification. Executives care about risk, growth of the business, growth of the business's revenue. They look for speed. They're concerned about their reputation. They're concerned about maintaining adherence to compliance regulations. And when they deal with cloud architects, what they're looking for is a recommendation. The executives, what they want to know is, what should we do? Why should we do it? And what will it cost? See, the executives are going to want to know what risk the architecture reduces, what happens if we do nothing, and what options did we consider and what trade-offs are we accepting with the architecture. Now let's talk about the last critical skill pillar, and that's communication skills. As architects, effective communication is absolutely critical for us to be able to do our jobs. See, as architects, we must make a complex idea simple. We must be able to explain technical decisions to business leaders. You must be able to explain business constraints and financial constraints to the engineers that work inside of that organization. You must be able to explain trade-offs to stakeholders so they can make informed decisions. And the reality is, if people don't understand the architecture because you couldn't communicate it properly, they won't trust it. And if they don't trust it, they don't fund it. And if they don't fund it, nothing happens. So let's get real specific on the skills you need in each of the 4 pillars of architect skills. I'll begin with the technical skills pillar. You have to understand applications and application architecture. You have to understand compute and your compute options and the trade-offs associated with each one. You definitely have to understand data and data architectures and protecting data and how data would flow through the system and the types of ways you could work with data, for example, and scale that. You definitely need to understand how to build a disaster recovery plan for a business. You definitely have to have a strong set of knowledge in identity and access management. You will need strong knowledge in networking, security, and even storage. So that's the technical skill pillars. And it's not going to be how to configure them. It's going to be how to design them and what are the trade-offs. For example, what are the trade-offs between a container virtual machine and a function as a service? And based upon those trade-offs, when would you use them? So now let's go to business skills. Now, business skills, as I mentioned, are critical. You really can't do the job without them. So I'll list them and I'll explain why. You have to be able to understand business strategy because you need to be able to connect your architecture to support the business strategy. You'll need to understand what business capabilities are because what we do as architects is we try to support the business's key capabilities with our architectures. You'll definitely have to learn about business case development. And what that is when a company is going to fund an architecture, they need to know what's in it for them. They're not going to just invest in it. So you have to build a business case and show how that architecture will have an impact on the business. A lot of what we do is business continuity planning, which is different than disaster recovery planning. Disaster recovery planning is, let's say there's a hurricane and the tech systems go down. How fast can we get those tech systems up? Business continuity planning is there's a hurricane, the power's out. How do we keep that hospital up and running to save the lives of the people that are in that hospital, even during the outage? So they're slightly different things. As architects, we obviously need to know finance because we're going to have to build a business case, which is finance-based. We're going to have to understand an organization's business. And ultimately, we're going to need to get funding from the chief financial officer, and they speak finance, so we must speak finance. Now, as architects, we're going to be negotiating with stakeholders constantly, so negotiation skills are key to this role. We're going to be managing vendors. Because, an architecture on the cloud might have 3 cloud providers, 5 networking providers, 3 security providers, 50 application providers, and they all have an impact on our architecture. So that's going to be a key skill pillar for us. Now, next is going to be the executive skill pillar. And the reason we need these skills is we're going to be there to advise the C-suite and the board moving forward on an architecture. And they're executives, and to communicate with executives, you need to be an executive yourself. We're going to be working with organizations through large changes. So a new security architecture may change the way people do their job, for example. And it's going to take a process to do that, to get people bought in, to get their support. So you have to be very familiar with managing change. You have to have the executive presence and the executive relevance to be able to walk in a room with executives, have them take you seriously, want to listen to you, and then you have the ability to communicate to them in the things that they actually care about. As the architect, we ultimately have to sell the architecture to the C-suite and the board to get it funded. We have to do a fair amount of stakeholder management and influencing the organization to get to the goal. So that's the executive skills pillar. Now let's get to the last communications pillar. And that is so essential because we're not engineers. No one gives us a piece of paper and says, build this. We have to determine what that company needs. And all of that occurs through some kind of a conversation. So you'll have to know how to communicate well. And the things we'll be doing communication-wise is we will be giving a fair number of presentations. We will doing some storytelling to connect our architecture with business outcomes for the executive team. We're going to be asking a lot of questions of executive, technical stakeholders, business stakeholders, vendors, so obtaining information. We're going to do a lot of writing, and a lot of that's going to be executive writing where we need something in 2 pages that can show the C-suite and the board why they should fund something. And of course, we're going to be creating a lot of architectural artifacts. And the point of an architectural artifact is to communicate something and make it easier to understand. The key message here is if you want to become a cloud architect and there's an incredible number of jobs out there and they're well paying, don't just build technical skills. Build the 4 pillars of technical skills, business skills, executive skills, and communication skills. And then you'll be looking, acting, and be able to work as a great cloud architect. At Go Cloud Careers, this is exactly what we teach. We help technology professionals become real-world cloud architects, enterprise architects, security architects, AI architects, and other technology leaders. And we don't just teach certification content. We teach all the critical 4 skill pillars, as that's what it takes for an architect to succeed. If you're serious about becoming a cloud architect, register for our next free architecture webinar. The link is in the description. And on that webinar, we'll talk about what we do as cloud architects. We'll talk about what hiring managers desire as cloud architects. We'll dive deeper into the skill set required to become a cloud architect. We'll talk about the portfolio that you should build to show hiring managers you're ready for the architect job. We'll even talking about how you get noticed and even and more interviews. And it's completely free. The webinar is on Zoom, so you can ask any questions. So the link is in the description, and I hope to meet you there. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell to be notified of new videos to assist you in your architecture career. And share this video with friends that are looking to become cloud architects or security architects or other architects. Because at Go Cloud Careers and Go Cloud Architects, all we focus on is architects. It's been so nice seeing you in this video, and I hope to see you in that free webinar or another video. Take care.